pedal when the lane moving fast. Hey, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Hey.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. We're going to be talking about probably the hottest, if not the hottest topic of all time inside of transportation, especially right now. But before we get into that, you guys, just a quick reminder. Yesterday was Wednesday. It's Freight Coach Newsletter Day. But you guys know of my outright refusal to automatically sign anybody up to receive it. So if you want to get in on that, again, it just drops on Wednesdays. We just talk about freight. I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com, though, to auto register for it. Because, again, I don't want to just automatically sign you guys up and then have you guys get annoyed every time you see me drop in every single Wednesday in your inbox unannounced like that. But with that being said, you guys, we're going to be talking about cargo theft. It's increasing, the speed of it, the entire infrastructure of it is changing at any given time. And I met this gentleman out in Austin, Texas at the NMFTA cybersecurity conference there in late October. And I wanted him to come on the show so we can talk about it. So I have Mr. Danny Ramon. He is the Director of Intelligence at Overhaul. Danny, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for having me on. I'm always eager to sort of spread the gospel, as it were, about supply chain security.
Dude, it's getting wild out there, man. I think it's been wild, and it's interesting to kind of see how things are even progressing inside of this. But, before we get into any of that stuff, what is Overhaul? Can you kind of bring people up to speed on what you guys are about?
Sure. There's a lot of things that Overhaul does. I'm mainly involved in like the security, visibility, and recovery side of things and investigations. But we do everything from supply chain visibility. It's kind of the main thing. We unite everything. We're device agnostic, so we unite everything onto a single platform. So it's a single point of visibility for your entire supply chain. We do operate globally. And as I mentioned, we're device agnostic. So any IoT enabled devices that you have in your system right now, we can incorporate into our platform. We also work with insurance, by demonstrating standards of care. Very often we can help lower insurance costs as well.
Let's dive right in. What has been some of the biggest kind of like eye-opening moments here over the last year about how things have kind of progressed with where we are from a cargo theft perspective?
It's really hard to nail it down to just like a moment or anything, but there's been, I think, several moments of realization over the last, say, half decade or so, because it really started changing around the pandemic, just, kind of like everything else across the world, right? There's the before times, and then there's the new normal that we're in right now. And around the pandemic, we started to see these folks sort of reinvest into their operations, whether they were doing this through technological or cyber-enabled means, which are some of the more sophisticated ones that we're seeing and some of the more worrying trends. But we also saw some folks who weren't using technology, who were performing large-scale pilferages, right? Pilferage is where you take cargo out of the trailer instead of taking the whole trailer. And pilferage used to be a game of like, punk kids at a truck stop popping seals in the middle of the night hoping to find video game systems or something, right? And if they did, they'd carry away an armload of them, as much as they could carry on foot usually, right? Now we're dealing with folks who, again, like I've mentioned, they've gained in tradecraft, they've reinvested into their operations, they travel in convoy of multiple vehicles, and when I say large-scale pilferage, they're taking 100% of the cargo out of the trailer. And they're doing this very intentionally because they know it's harder for law enforcement to pursue if law enforcement doesn't know what vehicle the cargo is in. And many times if law enforcement shows up to the site of a burglary or a cargo theft, and they have nothing to go on except for an empty trailer, there is no pursuit. Right, so they know that there's less chance of law enforcement intervention if they're not actually stealing the vehicle. If you steal the vehicle, that's something for law enforcement to look for as you're driving down the highway, right? But we've seen increase in sophistication, not just in the physical thefts, but also in the technologically enabled thefts. And it's been a process over the last 5 years where we've seen all elements within organized cargo theft gain in sophistication and gain in tradecraft.
So, like, talking about the technological side of things, it's like seemingly this stuff can happen in a matter of minutes, right? And before you know it, it's like it's all gone. How are you guys acting? Like, obviously, you're not going to give away any trade secrets or anything like that, but like, how are you guys actively working to thwart this from kind of progressing, or maybe working with your guys as clients to be like, hey, there's a potential X happening out there in the market. We got to get after it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an interesting thing, right? We always say that prevention is the key, and it's 100% true. It is an order of magnitude easier to prevent a theft than it is to recover something that's already been stolen. So we look at patterns of behavior, right? We have extreme levels of visibility once our clients are engaged in our platform and fully utilizing all of the features. We have extreme granular visibility in real time into the supply chain. We can detect patterns of behavior that indicate fraud, that indicate theft in progress, or even before it's happening. So there's obviously doing business with, right? Vet who's showing up to pick up your cargo, not just the information that arrives before they show up, but also vet the physical entities that arrive, the tractor, the trailer, and the driver. Make sure that they match, make sure they're not throwing up any red flags as well, right? But you've also got to take a look at the specific supply chain you're trying to protect, because there is no one magic bullet that's going to cure all of your problems, right? Everybody's supply chain is different and unique, and criminals are like water. They're going to seek out the path of least resistance, and they're going to go through those cracks, right? And if you patch that one crack, I mean, the water is going to build and it's going to seep in through the next available crack, right? So that's the point when I tell people that you have to implement a full layered security program. It's not just patch this one vulnerability that you find, because these folks have a path of escalation, right? They've got, especially when we talk about the strategic theft folks, the folks who use technology and cyber-enabled methodologies, they've got dozens of individual MOs that they can mix and match and layer depending on the security posture of their target, right? And if that target then only patches that one vulnerability that caused them that one loss that they noticed, the criminals then have a path of escalation they can follow to continue targeting that same victim.
How much vulnerabilities are companies unaware of? And do you feel that the push for digitization, and I'm not here to knock on it at all, but do you feel like that has exposed more vulnerabilities inside of most organizations that they're unaware of even at this point?
I think so. We're dealing with, I mean, even when you look back at like the ELD mandate, it was meant to drive efficiency, and it did, but it also increased it exposed a lot of vulnerabilities, right? It introduced a lot of vulnerabilities into the situation, because we're dealing with a population, a workforce population that maybe is not the most technologically adept or the most even eager to adopt a new technology. And especially if we're dealing, on the broker side, you start looking at like brokering out to smaller carriers, like owner-operator carriers. You're talking about folks that don't have an IT department. They don't have an HR department. Nobody's pushing out cybersecurity training to them annually and making sure that they pass. And if they don't, making sure that they get remedial training. So it can be a thing that the end users end up lagging behind some of the security aspects of these things that get introduced. So absolutely, whenever you introduce technology, unless it's very, very well thought out, and even in those cases, usually there's vulnerabilities that get exposed after the fact that nobody ever anticipated would be there. But when we talk about, are there vulnerabilities out there that a lot of companies have that they're not aware of? 100%. There's absolutely going to be vulnerabilities out there.
Do you think that, and I'm not anti-automation at all, and I'm not even anti-AI, voice, anything like that, but do you think that this should make a lot of companies question how digital they want their freight transactions to be, and if they want to keep that human element involved? Because it, to me, seemingly, like, again, and this is just coming from somebody who actively moves freight every single day of the week. I talk to drivers every single day of the week, dispatchers, all of this, and the tendencies haven't changed out there from the people who are trying to gain access to it. And again, I stopped speaking publicly about it because I don't want to give away any of the things, but I have a couple of key questions that I ask every single time. And if they can't answer that, it doesn't matter what they do. And, because for me, it's I think that the more of a push that there is for the digitization of the freight transaction, i.e., people can go in and just like automatically book. There's no checks and balances, essentially what I'm trying to say here.
Right.
Do you think that if there's more of that's driven, you're going to see an increase in freight theft?
If they're doing it without proper oversight, yes. Now, again, just like you, I'm not boo-hooing on automation. Automation is great. It's an amazing force multiplier, but it's just that it's a force multiplier. You have to have human force and human intelligence behind it to verify that everything's going correctly, and to just add that little extra piece of oversight, that human insight that a machine can't really do, at least not at this point. Maybe in the future. I haven't seen it yet, right? So I'm not telling people not to automate. But I am telling people, don't completely remove the human element.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. I think like for me, it's like 95% of my day should be automated, but there is that 5% that like I need that checks and balance that comes into place. And again, it's like it's always great to look at the marketing decks of some of the pieces of technology that are out there. But again, it's like you got to stop to think: does this inadvertently expose me or increase my risk to theft and potential cyber, on a blank on the word here, but like cyber attacks and stuff like that? Does that increase the vulnerabilities and the risks out there? Because again, and that's one thing, and this is why I love going to the NMFTA cybersecurity conferences, is it helps me think about a lot of these plans that otherwise that wouldn't even have crossed my mind. Like with obviously phishing emails are one of the biggest ones out there. But again, like that's all it takes, right? It's just one click and then boom, these guys have access. And then again, they can sit behind the scenes for like a year and just study your tendencies. And then they strike and you don't know.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of these folks that we're dealing, when we talk about strategic theft or fraudulent theft or theft by deception, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of names for it in the industry. We're dealing with the most prolific intelligence sharing organized group within cargo theft we've ever dealt with, right? So they are a network, and some arms of this network only operate legitimately as an intelligence gathering arm for the entire network, right? So they're not committing any crimes. They're not stealing any cargo. They're not opening up your trailer en route to insert more cargo on there. They're doing everything by the book because they want to gather all the paperwork packets. They want to gather all of the proof of delivery stamps from all of the destinations. They want to get all the policies and procedures down for each location so they can feed that information to their associates, right? And it becomes a game of whack-a-mole because, like I mentioned, they've got a couple dozen different MOs that they can mix, match, and layer. And unless you're aware that they're coming for you, it's really tough to deter them.
What are some of those things then? Like, I mean, I want to kind of lump in shippers here. What are the mistakes they're making that leaves their cargo vulnerable and they're like not even aware? Is it the dependence on their providers that they think that they should be responsible? I mean, again, I'm just more of like throwing this out there. Do you think that this should start and stop at the dock level?
No, I mean, it's a team sport. Everybody's got to take part. This is something that was mentioned at the NMFTA conference. I know Artie says it all the time. I've heard other people say it as well. And that's definitely one of them. Another thing that was said at the NMFTA conference is, the old adage of trust but verify is inadequate nowadays. It is verify and then verify again, right? So verify at all points of contact that you're doing business with who you should be doing business with. Now, the vulnerabilities that exist, are legion, right? I think one of the big ones is control where your loads are posted, right? If they're going to be on a load board, make sure you know what the integrity level of that load board is, because even if it doesn't get picked up by a bad actor, because you've got really good screening procedures, they can still gather intelligence from the information that you put on a load board. Even if you think it's anonymized, there's still statistical information that they can gather and make a very accurate, educated guess on what might be at that location shipping out of that particular warehouse.
Yeah, and because I tell people all the time, because I've been asked like, what's the first thing? And I'm like, and this is blatantly obvious, but like, stop posting the commodity in the load posting.
Oh, please.
Like straight up, if any of your people out there are doing it, stop posting the commodity in there. This is why you need to talk to the individuals, and this is why it's like, again, I'm not anti-tech, but like this is why I want to talk to everybody when I'm booking them, right? Because like at the end of the day, I look at it. It's the path of least resistance, right? Like, again, they're looking for that path of least resistance. And if you make it harder for them, they will be deterred. I'm not saying it's going to go away, but they will be deterred because they're like, I don't want to talk to this person for 5 minutes on the phone. I want to go find the person who doesn't care or who won't pick up the phone, and they'll book it via email. So again, you got to have those steps in place, because it's like you have to make it very, very, very difficult for them to book your freight, because again, the more questions you ask, I mean, it's just like with anything, man. You don't want to get 20 questions for anything. So it's like, you're just probably going to hang up the phone at that point.
Yeah, exactly. You want to not be the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So like, how have you guys used technology to maybe spot, I would say like predictive analytics, right? Like how that's caught a traditional, like caught theft that like traditional tracking may have missed?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I mentioned, the patterns of behavior, one of the big ones is double loading, right? Double loading, and there's a lot of things in the supply chain industry that I tell people are common and legal, but not secure. And double loading, double brokering double brokering is definitely one of those. When your load gets double brokered without your knowledge, that's definitely a security risk, right? If it's double brokered with your knowledge and everything's done contractually the way you've agreed to, that's not an issue. It's when it starts happening without your knowledge that makes it very difficult to get back in the instance of a theft or a loss, right? Now, if you've got predictive analytics running, or if you're on our platform, we can detect if it's being double brokered and going somewhere it shouldn't be going. We can detect that pattern of behavior that indicates it's not in the possession of the people who should be in possession of it. And then we can raise the red flags before it completely disappears from the grid.
Is there anything you can give out to help people spot that?
My pet peeve one is the trailer doors. Okay. Every trailer and container on this planet comes off the factory line with rivets on all of the hardware. If you see nuts and bolts attaching any of that hardware to the back of the trailer, it has been intentionally replaced. It has replaced the rivets with nuts and bolts. And the only reason for doing that is to be able to open the trailer doors without breaking the seal. They can open the trailer doors and then close the trailer doors, and the seal remains intact. And I mean, it's usually on the seal hasp, the little part where you would insert the seal. Usually the rivet there would be replaced with a nut and bolt, but any of them can be replaced with nuts and bolts and to the same effect, right? And that can maybe just be because they want to be able to get in there and make sure their trailer's okay, or they need to be able to do status checks and they don't want to disturb the seal. It may be because they're going to insert extra cargo on that trailer to charge twice for their trip across the country, or it may be because they have much more nefarious intentions and they're going to steal your cargo. And a lot of times it starts off as one of the earlier ones and evolves into one of the later ones, right? Because if they open the trailer doors and they don't get a call, nobody raises a red flag, they're like, okay, cool. Next time, maybe a couple of boxes go missing off of one of the pallets. Okay, nobody raised a red flag. I didn't get a phone call or an email. Okay, next time, maybe a pallet's missing. And then maybe next time it just doesn't show up, or it shows up and instead of 40 pallets, there's one pallet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can escalate very quickly.
Do you think that is still kind of like a standard is its own, like they're still trying those little peeling back layers on it? Or are you seeing a rise of people who are like, screw it, we're just going first load, boom, we're done, we're disappearing?
we're seeing a rise across all methods, right? So yeah, we're definitely still seeing the small little penetration testing thefts that evolve into more serious thefts, and we're seeing the folks who get all of their ducks in a row before they go charging through the front gate and go full bore with their first one to steal the entire tractor trailer. We've seen folks who have used technology and cyber enabled methods to steal 300 loads before the first one going missing is noticed. So I mean, there's so many different ways that it happens. It's pretty scary, and to see that we're experiencing increases, and not just increases, but record-breaking increases year over year and quarter over quarter for the last 5 years straight, across all verticals, across all MOs, across all areas of the country.
Yeah, for me, Danny, I think the most alarming thing is it used to be like a couple of key commodities that were at risk, right? And then that's where you saw a lot of the whatchamacallit reports. So like I've moved high value cargo out there. There was an SOP that we had to follow for every single shipment that came about. I am not going to say any of that live, but like we're talking, these were $1 million shipments, and there was a lot of hoops he had to jump through. but like that was seemingly at the time like the only freight that was like targeted. Now it seems like it's cotton swabs, right? Like it's plastic cups, and that's why it's like I'm out there and I'm trying to tell people the point of stop posting the commodity. Most importantly is you got to think like a thief for a second. You got to think, how easy would it be to liquidate this entire truck before you even know that it's missing? And I think like that's what a lot of it is. And I think like, do you guys know, maybe you guys have a report or some data on this. Is there any direct correlation to household goods being stolen and like hard economic times? Like, you know, because again, like right now, you say what you want out there, grocery prices aren't going down. So it's like, do you see a rise, and is there any direct correlations between the two?
Yeah, you know, you hit the nail on the head, and it's really the last 5 years again, the calculus for the thief. It used to be just cost density, right? Cost density, price density is what's driving the demand by the thief. It was very traditional organized crime liquidation methods. You know, you had a fence contact who then would send it off to distributors who would usually move it, you know, overseas, especially if it was anything uniquely serialized. And of course, everybody along this process, every step along the way is taking a cut, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the prime driver of attractiveness, cost density is second. The primary driver is desirability, market desirability. How quick can they liquidate it, right? How in demand is it? And that's because consumer behavior has shifted, right? And that everyone wants it now. They want it delivered to their doorstep within 2 days, and they want it as cheap as possible. If all those boxes are checked, they're not really asking a lot of questions. I'm in that boat too, right? Yeah. Now, unfortunately, that has changed the liquidation channels for the criminals. We're now dealing with a criminal direct-to-consumer pipeline, right? So let me just kind of paint a hypothetical picture for you, and this hypothetical picture happens every day. Somebody is involved in fraudulent theft, you know, cyber-enabled theft, strategic theft. They've got a small network of bad actor carriers that assist them with this, and they can steal dozens of loads a day from behind a keyboard and never come into direct contact with the cargo/evidence, right? Now, it used to be that you would have to ship that overseas or find some back alley channel in order to liquidate it, right? Now we've got e-tail websites and social media marketplaces. Example, TikTok is not only driving consumer desires, it is also selling them the product, right? You can go to a TikTok store and buy all the products that are going viral there. And I tell people all the time, if there's a consumer product going viral on TikTok, you can bet it's going to be a target of cargo theft, right? But an example, let's say you've got video game systems, right? You've stolen a trailer load of video game systems. You used to have to ship that overseas, right? Now, I'm going to drop ship it to an e-tail website, right? They're going to intake it into their inventory, and it doesn't go into seller ABC's pile of video game consoles. It goes into the general pile of video game consoles. Mm-hmm. So if somehow investigation leads back there and they find stolen serial numbers in that pile, they can't link it back to, you know, seller ABC. Seller ABC still has his inventory on his storefront and is still collecting money. 100% of the profit, by the way, because it's not like he paid the wholesale price to obtain those consoles, right? So seeing things like paper towels being targeted in 2020. Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, you're free. I can still hear you.
Okay. There we go. So yeah, we had the paper towels being stolen in 2020 because they were flying off the shelves and they could be sold for multiple times the retail value. So all of a sudden, paper towels became more valuable to thieves than a truckload of flat screen televisions, right? Mm-hmm. After natural disasters, we see thefts of lumber and shingles spike. There's a certain price of copper, and it's usually copper is the one, and it's in relation, it's a ratio to the price of fuel. When the price of copper goes above a certain threshold ratio to fuel, we see scrap metal thefts start to spike, not just copper, but also, you know, aluminum and things like that, right? There's all sorts of things. If there's a state that implements new solar panel subsidies, we see solar panels spike.
Yeah. So like, I guess, what are things that people should do on this to, you know, again, because I think like it's going to come from the industry, right? Like it's got to come from the ground up. Legislation is not going to be passed in DC. Even if it was put together today, is going to be like 15 years from now is when it might see the floor out there. So it's like, we got to do this stuff today. What are some of those calls to action for the, you know, whether brokers, carriers, or shippers alike? What are these things that we got to do?
Yeah, the first one is education, right? Plug yourself in, make sure you're part of the industry associations and networks, and you're attending the events so you can get up to speed on exactly what's happening right now. The second one is, again, it's a team sport, right? Make sure you're engaged in that team sport. I see a lot of folks. I like to put it in terms of pay it forward, right? And I'm when I say this, I'm not saying go broke covering somebody else's liability, but I think everybody tends to wash their hands of any responsibility if they don't have liability for the cargo, right?
Yeah.
And that's where those gaps are created. And there's a lot of times I think you can cover somebody else's liability without much or without any real inconvenience or cost to yourself. And I think every player in the supply chain needs to do that, right? Don't leave trailers sitting outside of the yard if you don't have to. Like bring them inside the fenced yard while they're waiting to unload. Don't make them wait outside, or communicate with folks, and let them know, hey, our yard is full. Maybe you park 50 miles down the road instead of right outside our gates. That's just one example, right? But I think we're all aware of how we wash our hands of responsibility whenever the liability is no longer on our desk, right? And I think the thieves know this, right? They operate legitimately within the supply chain, so they know where these gaps are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so like with a lot of that being said, man, it's kind of, we're wrapping up here this morning. What are your warning to people in 2026? What trends should everybody be prepared for that they might not be thinking about right now?
Yeah, the warning I would put it to people is that just because you haven't been a victim of cargo theft yet doesn't mean that you're safe. As a matter of fact, we're seeing a lot of folks, a lot of areas of the country, and a lot of shippers who have never heard of cargo theft, never experienced cargo theft, and then the first time that they hear or experience it is being the victim of it, and not a basic type of theft. They're being thrown directly into the deep end with some of the most sophisticated cyber-enabled strategic theft methods that exist, right? So I think the biggest mistake is thinking that you theft. The only reason that if there's vulnerable cargo out there that hasn't been stolen, which there is quite a bit, the only reason it hasn't been stolen is because there's not enough cargo thieves right now. Any plateauing or shallowing of the increase that we're starting to see is because they've reached they've hit the wall in terms of personnel, right? The saturation within their organization of people has reached its limit before the saturation of vulnerable cargo has been stolen. So,
do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better? And again, I'm not trying to fear monger, but like my call is going to get worse before it gets better.
I agree, unfortunately, right? I'm starting to see, we were talking before the show started, I haven't attended a cargo security conference in the last 2.5 years that was not at or above capacity. So the industry is definitely starting to take it a lot more seriously, and awareness is really growing of it, but it's a slow movement, right? And it is definitely going to get worse before it gets better. If I had to put my finger in the air and put a bet down on it, I'm saying it's going to get worse for probably the next 3 years before it starts to get better.
Yeah, unfortunately we agree on that topic, Danny, but I stand there with you on it, man. I do. I think it's going to get worse. And I feel like as long as the current administration continues to push with a lot of this policies that they are inside of transportation, I think that's going to cause a lot of last ditch effort of, if they're going to go this hard, let's get as much as we can in as short amount of time as we can. I just feel like that just comes, it's the good and the bad of trying to clean up a serious issue that is out there, that is cargo theft. But Danny, I'm going to have you back on in the New Year's, whether you want to or not, because I feel like we got a lot that we can cover here, man. But how does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you guys got going on there?
Yeah, definitely, take a look at my profile. Follow me on LinkedIn, Danny Ramon, Director of Intelligence and Response at Overhaul, or check us out at over-haul.com. We're always trying to put up as much real-time actionable intelligence as we can that kind of clues you into what's going on in the supply chain.
Perfect. Danny, thank you so much. If you guys can't find Danny or Overhaul out there at all, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with him. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.